My name is William Kuskin. I'm chair of the Department of English at the University of Colorado Boulder, and I want to thank you for joining me today and for taking the time to watch my talk. For years, I worked on digital education here at the University of Colorado, designing massive scale degrees on the Coursera platform. But I want to talk to you today about heroism. Right now, we live in a powerful moment in global history. It is my opinion that only education can get us through this moment successfully. We are in a period of disruption, political disruption, social disruption, and technology disruption. In the short time I have today, I don't have time to talk about all of these disruptions. I want to focus in on the past dozen years in higher education, specifically on online learning. I want to suggest what I see are some serious dangers of our times, but I want to suggest too some practical lessons for teaching at scale online and in the classroom. But let me say this: teaching is a heroic act. The world needs heroes. And if you're watching this, you are that hero. Whatever the terms of your teaching, classroom teaching, online teaching, staff support, administrative management, tutoring a kid after school to learn to read or to do math, you can achieve greatness. And you can extend that greatness to those students. You can liberate them from fear. We live in a time of fear. That fear comes from ignorance. Teaching is how we transmit what it means to be human across time. By teaching, we dispel ignorance and fear and replace it with human connection. We must teach people not to be afraid, but to be educated, to reach for their better selves. And I am here now to say that you can accomplish this. You can make a difference. You are an educational hero. Seize that. Be that. So I want to begin my talk by sketching three major disruptions in online education, for America at least, over the past dozen years. I begin my story in 2012. That was the year that the New York Times declared the year of the MOOC. Now, online education had been around for quite a while, but in 2012, the massive open online course broke, and it was free. The New York Times declared it a revolution in education. They said that the instruction for the masses had finally come, and it was going to knock down campus walls. But the truth of the year of the MOOC was that it was a revolution that never came. The university system, it simply self-stabilized. It subsumed the massive open online course. It continued in its own ways. The real truth of this moment in 2012 was that it announced a great dissatisfaction with the current status quo of education. And it hoped that Silicon Valley and online technology would rescue us from the status quo. 2012 spoke not of a revolution, but of a desire for change. The next moment I want to underscore, the second disruption, occurred 7 years later in 2019 with the pandemic and the quarantine. The pandemic appeared as a great forcing agent for online education. because everyone had to teach online. I thought, here it is, the real revolution, the real moment of exceptional change. But again, it was a forcing agent that never came. And the reason was that it reinforced a simplistic definition of online learning. It suggested that on-campus teaching was fundamentally the ideal educational experience, and any distance, hybrid, synchronous, asynchronous, MOOCs, was simply a deterioration, a degradation of that kind of teaching. Again, the university system self-stabilized. Again, the university system asserted that its way of teaching was the best way, and that online education was only a poor substitute. In 2023, we came to another moment of disruption: widespread use of artificial intelligence. I'm indebted to my colleague, Teresa Nugent, and her discussions of AI for pointing out this wonderful article by Owen Terry in the Chronicle of Higher Education. It's titled, "I'm a Student. You have no idea how much we're using ChatGPT." And it's a kind of kiss and tell article from the perspective of a very smart student who's looking around at all his peers using AI in the classroom. I want to focus us in on one particular quotation. Owen Terry writes, "We are at an awkward middle ground where nobody knows what to do, where very few people in power even understand that something is wrong. At any given time, I can look around my classroom and find multiple people doing their homework with the help of ChatGPT. We're not being forced to think anymore. People worry that ChatGPT might eventually start rendering major institutions obsolete. It seems to me that it already has." So this is from the voice of a student commenting on his experience of education. And I'm intrigued by his idea of an awkward middle ground. We're in this moment of disruptive transition. Let me try and sum it up as I see it. First, I think this transition tends to make us passive. It makes us passive because it appears to us as teachers and learners that technology is raining down on us, that we have no control over it. But in fact, we need to remember that we summon up technology and we choose to use it. It's our dissatisfaction with higher education that leads us to greater senses of online usage. It's our dissatisfaction with writing that allows us to turn to AI. It's our dissatisfaction with coding that draws us in to having an artificial intelligence help us through. So first is a sense of passivity that overwrites our own sense of agency. Second, the university is both an innovation hub and also a self-stabilizing structure. The university system, it ate the MOOCs, digested them. The university system, it ate online after the pandemic and it spat it out. The university system, I have no idea if it will eat AI, but it does tend to survive technology change. My third point about this awkward moment is the most important. Our current generation of students have faced these multiple disruptions with little guidance. In order to survive change, they've learned a very instrumental sense of education. They've learned that education is a game of checkboxing, of checking off little boxes of tasks, of busy work that needs to be gotten through, not of intellectual engagement. I believe this defines our awkward middle ground, and it's complicated because we have sent our children and our students out into the unknown without a roadmap to discover on their own how they might survive. So one article that's helped me, and again, I'm indebted to Teresa Nugent, is by Graham Burnett, called Will the Humanities Survive Artificial Intelligence? And it's useful because it captures his experience teaching and a voice of a student using AI. He writes very eloquently, and the student speaks very eloquently, and I'd like to read to you. He writes, what this student had come to say was that she had descended more deeply into her own mind, into her own conceptual powers, while in dialogue with an intelligence towards which she felt no social obligation, no need to accommodate, and no pressure to please. It was a discovery for her and for me with widening implications for all of us. And it was so patient, she said. I was asking it about the history of attention, but 5 minutes in, I realized I don't think anyone has ever paid such pure attention to me and my thinking and my questions ever. It made me rethink all my interactions with people. There's something amazing here, powerful and persuasive. The student is liberated from social codes. She's able to speak with a freedom that she's never felt before. She's able to investigate her own thinking with an interlocutor that she feels pays pure attention. But how pure is that attention, I would ask? I'll turn to another thinker who's impressed me, Shoshana Zuboff, in her book, The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. She thinks about how the internet works, and she writes, surveillance capitalism unilaterally claims human experience as free raw material for translation into behavioral data. Although some of these data are applied to product, service, or improvement, the rest are declared as proprietary behavioral surplus, fed into advanced manufacturing processes known as machine intelligence, and fabricated into prediction products that anticipate what you will do now, soon, and later. Finally, these prediction products are traded in a new kind of marketplace for behavioral predictions that I call behavioral futures markets. Surveillance capitalists have grown immensely wealthy from these trading operations. Human experience as free raw material for behavioral data. We let our students investigate the world of AI at their own reconnaissance, but as they explore it, they sail into seas that are not disinterested in their engagement. Seas that actively capitalize on it. I don't see a way around this. We all use the internet, social media, and increasingly artificial intelligence products. However, I do think we can cut a line between what it means to utilize these products and what it means to truly teach. In my own teaching, I've come then to emphasize learning how to learn over simply teaching content. For example, I teach a large course on comic books, some 300 students. I teach it also online. It certainly isn't the ideal on-campus class. There's far too many students, 300 to 1, for me to teach everyone personally. But I try to get them relating, not to the machines in their lives, but to themselves. I try to get them to turn inward, to think about themselves. I do this in a number of ways. First, I ask them to make their own comic. This is a task few of them are prepared to do, and many of them resist. They're afraid. They're afraid to investigate their own creativity. Let me show you one. Here's one that speaks to the pressure of being a student. You can see the words of the world crushing down upon her, squeezing her. Yesterday, there was a shooting. Climate change causes massive flooding. Unemployment rising across the country. Disturbing video shows an attack on. You can see the world, the words of the world pushing her down. It's an intense comic, but it's a creative comic. It's a creative statement. She had to look inward to think about who she was. Ultimately, it's a powerful statement of self-expression. Second, I emphasize my own students' agency, and I talk to them about it. I have here a page from my reader, my homemade textbook for my course. I've boxed in red a part of the page I'd like to read to you. Learning belongs to the learner. You have a choice in your education and control in your life. You can make an effort to come to lecture. You can make an effort to actively participate. You can turn off your cell phone when we are in lecture or otherwise ignore it. You can turn off your computer or block the Wi-Fi signal. You can find a seat in the front of the room. You can introduce yourself to the professor and to your neighbor. Knowing people will anchor you in the class. We all mess up. We all become distracted, miss a deadline, or miss a class at some point or another. Learning is not defined by isolated issues. It is defined by overall engagement. So, my emphasis here is that their learning belongs to them, but not if they are passive. And even when their situation seems passive, when they're sitting in a room of 300 or simply watching a video online, they do have agency. They can concentrate, but if you don't tell them that, they don't know, because we are being trained to be passive. On the same page, there's another point I'd like to emphasize. I attended a very fine boxing school in Boulder. While I slaved away at the heavy bag one day, I noticed a paper sign posted on the wall. It read, "The difference between fear and excitement is breathing." These struck me as wise and true words. Breathing returns us to our bodies. It allows us to function. When the weight of life becomes all too much, breathe through it. Breathe. Turn fear into excitement. Turn desperation into opportunity by remembering that you are a human being, going through the world, active and capable and thoughtful. So let me conclude. Education, how we pass on who we are, is a deep part of the human experience. I want to suggest that as educators, we need to be aware that content currently comes cheap. It's on the internet for free. What does not come cheap is how we shepherd our students, how we teach them. And I believe that pushing our students into their own creativity, getting them to see themselves as having agency in their learning and acknowledge themselves as human beings capable of fear, but also excitement. These things are part of education, regardless of the mode, regardless whether it's large lecturing, online teaching, or tutoring a kid after school. Our role as educators is hopeful. It is noble. It is heroic. It can inspire students regardless of the modality. We should be proud to teach in a time of disruption. We should be educational heroes. Thank you.